This is take one of my U.S. History summer assignment. The topic will be the Columbine High School Massacre. My name is Joseph Keegan, and this is my father,
Norman Keegan.
To start, we're just gonna talk about your memory of the event. Where were you when the event occurred?
I actually had just gotten home from college. Had a couple classes that morning.
What year were you in college?
Junior year in college.
Junior year.
So I was heading home so that I could eat and then head to work after.
See, what were you doing at the time? Did you see it on the news? Did someone tell you about it?
I turned on the TV, probably to look at ESPN, and instead that's what I saw on TV.
Did you know at all where Columbine was before?
Never heard of it.
And were you close to the age of the students involved? I know it was high school, but did that affect at all how you felt about it?
Yeah, I was probably 4 or 5 years older than them, since I was just in my junior year of college, but I also had several younger brothers that were still in high school, so it definitely hit close to home.
And about the news coverage, you said you saw it on the news when you got home. Do you remember anything specific about the news at the time, the TV, or after, in the newspapers?
Couldn't really understand what was going on. I think now we think of school shootings, unfortunately, as a little bit more common, and so you assume that's what's going on, but back then we had no idea. We didn't know if it was someone attacking the school, or what was going on. Just couldn't really even imagine what was happening. You just knew that there was shooters at the school, and you could see all the news clips of everybody running out, jumping out of windows, running to the cops that were there. So I think at the time, what I remember the most is not knowing what was going on, because that was somewhat of a new type of event for us. So.
You said you had younger brothers in high school. I want to talk about how people around you, maybe relatives, coworkers, how did they talk about it,
Yeah, I think at first everyone was it was the talk. I mean, there was nothing else to talk about. Everyone was talking about that. It was incredible to think about a shooting inside a school like that. I think for most of us, we felt that place was one of the safest places we could have ever been, was in high school. As an older brother, obviously I never thought that anything like that could happen to my brothers while they were in high school. And so when they came back, that it was all we talked about all night, all we talked about for weeks, to be honest. So kind of, I think, talking about what it would be like if we were in that situation, and how we would feel and how we would react and what we would do. I remember clearly telling them that, and it's funny to think of it now, but telling them that if that happened, you should run. You should run home. You should actually not even be looking for each other, but you should just run home as soon as possible and just meet there. Because I think by this time we were realizing that people had kind of barricaded themselves in classrooms, hidden under desks, maybe in closets, and then of course when the shooters came in, they basically shot them, right? So that's what I remember about the conversations after, was how shocked we were that the shooters went in and basically were shooting their classmates one by one. And so we talked a lot about what we would do in that situation, or how we would handle it.
Of course, yeah, very, very scary to think about. You mentioned how schools had a protocol, that kind of barricading, shelter in place. Did it make you or people you knew feel different about those protocols, about school safety in general?
Yeah, I guess so. I think that there's a natural instinct to run or to protect yourself, and sometimes in those situations you would follow the protocol of what you were taught. But again, it was new, so no one had ever talked about it. The only protocols we ever had were fire drills, right? Where you hid underneath the desk and you waited for it to end. So this was a situation where I think that no one was really prepared for it or could imagine it happening. So those protocols just were not effective.
Mm-hmm.
I think now when we look at it, it's been so long, people know how to respond to it now. Even at work, I've gone through trainings where if a shooter comes into work, what we would do. And what's interesting now is it's not run and hide, but it's instead run or fight. And unfortunately, there's been many situations after that, and you can see that if you would follow that rule, it would be better than to hide or to wait or to whatever, right?
Yeah.
It's better to fight, engage the shooter, move on. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think the thing about that incident that I still remember today is no one could imagine that could happen. Yeah, it was a shock to everybody.
Yeah, a lot of changed about safety and protocols since then. I want to ask you how now moving on to the impact, whether it be long term, short term of the event. How has the event affected you since then? Just it's a vague question, but in terms of like you and maybe people you've had to, you said you were the older brother, you've had kids since then. How has it just affected? Yeah.
I don't know if affected, but I think about kind of the differences. I think there's more focus on maybe like adolescence and what they're going through and how they're feeling. There's more talk about mental well-being and certain medical conditions that people could have, how they feel. There's more emphasis on your well-being and whether you're depressed or whether you're feeling good, which I think were all good things. There was a point where there was also more focus on gun control and making sure that people couldn't just have guns or have access to guns. I think in this situation, one of the things that made it more impactful in terms of the carnage was that they were able to use like assault weapons and things like that. So I think there's a little bit more thought into that, and it's not just brushed off. But the impact is, I think, paying attention more to how people feel, what they're going through. I think the whole bullying and all of that stuff that happens in school is all looked at. So I think that's been the biggest impact. Unfortunately, it still continues to happen at times, right? So you sometimes don't think that it's effective, but I would like to believe that there's plenty of people that have different outlets or different ways to approach the situation than those kids felt back then.
Yeah, you mentioned that mental health and the access to weapons, especially automatic weapons, and you would agree that this school shooting Columbine, it was one of the first, but later school shootings like Sandy Hook, Parkland, and Uvalde, they're all connected to those two topics. And another question: do you feel like Columbine changed? Sorry, you answered that one. Now going on to a kind of a more personal reflection of the event. Looking back now, does the event feel different to you now than it did then?
No, not necessarily. I mean, it's still a tragedy. It's still horrific what happened. I don't think anything has changed. I guess for some people, there's a loss of innocence. Some of these situations stick closer to you because you realize that you're not a kid anymore, or the world is not like a good, safe place, but it's actually different. So I wouldn't say it's changed. And in some ways, you worry about yourself, then you worry about your younger brothers, and then eventually you get older, you have kids, and now you're worried about your kids. I know between me and you, unfortunately, we've had to talk about what we would do in that type of situation, how I would want you to handle it, your sister. So I would say actually there's been no change. If anything, maybe because there's more situations, you get a little bit numb, but in terms of my feeling of the first situation, it's as raw as it was even back then. Still just unbelievable that could happen.
So you would agree that your experience of Columbine, of the news, of just as a U.S. American, it influenced the way you raised your younger brothers and me and my sister, your children?
Totally.
And as a final question, what do I need to know that I haven't asked you?
No, you did
Yeah.
a good job interviewing. I think
Okay.
you asked all the good questions.
Got it. Thank you.